Welcome to the Heal with Kelly podcast. I'm Kelly Noonan-Gorse, and every week I speak to the leading doctors, healers, spiritual teachers, and scientists to find out what is truly possible when it comes to healing. I also interview real people with extraordinary healing stories. My philosophy is, what's possible for one is possible for all. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful journey of remembering our divine nature and tapping into the truths that shall set us free. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Heal with Kelly podcast. I am so excited for today's conversation with Dr. Catherine Clinton. Let me tell you about her. I've been following her. We've been following each other on Instagram, and I just love the content she creates because I resonate with it so deeply, yet I don't know much about it. So I am coming into this conversation as total beginner's mind to talk about quantum biology and quantum parenting. So super excited. Usually, I know a lot about the subject that we're going to talk about before, to prepare for the interview. But today I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to sit as an open vessel and learn, which I'm really excited about that energy that's here with us today. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Catherine Clinton. She is a licensed naturopathic physician. She spent over 16 years helping people overcome their health issues. Diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease while in medical school, she began the long and difficult journey of healing, a path that led to the commitment to help others to not only heal physically, but to return to the relationships we evolved over millennia with for a deeper sense of health and belonging. By healing herself and patients like her, she discovered that true health comes from our relationships. Dr. Catherine has learned how our quantum biological system is intimately and inseparably connected to the world around us. Our relationship with the dirt beneath our feet, the sun, the wind, the water, the plants, the seasons, each other, that is the real medicine. Dr. Catherine's mission is to empower as many people as she can with this knowledge to encourage the paradigm shift we so desperately need. I mean, speaking my language, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Kelly. I am so excited to dive into all of these topics with you today.
Oh my gosh. Just reading your bio, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Everything that I've been working on and aware of lately, and just, it's really in the zeitgeist of this paradigm shift of like reconnecting to ourselves, each other, and nature again. That's why we're so sick, right? This disconnection. So let's just start, I guess, with quantum biology, since you speak about it so much. What is quantum biology?
That's a great question. Now, quantum biology is a new emerging field, and there's actually a few definitions of it, right? It's this exploration into quantum physics or quantum phenomenon in living systems. So quantum tunneling, superposition, quantum entanglement, quantum coherence. And the way I speak about quantum biology is how these photons of light, right? These little quanta of light or phonons from sound or frequency from electromagnetic fields, from magnetism, from electricity, how they shape and guide our subatomic interactions. So what am I talking about there? I'm talking about the flow of electrons in the mitochondria. I'm talking about protons. I'm talking about all of these nano-sized interactions that we have in the body, enzymes, little small proteins that capture light, all of these different things are very small on the nanoscale, but they have a huge impact on our biology. And that's really what quantum biology is, or how I'm defining it, is these small interactions of the body giving rise to what we see and know on our doctor's visits, on our lab values and our symptom list. It's this real exploration into the smaller pieces of biology or life.
I've always been fascinated. It's hard for me to articulate, but this micro, macro relationship, just like everything just feels like it mirrors each other as it grows out to the cosmos. It's like this, it's just wild to me. Like little galaxies are happening in our body. And so I could talk about this for days, but how did you, I guess we should start talking about your healing journey and what you discovered along the way to do the work that you do, and then how it ended up in the quanta.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in my second year of naturopathic medical school, and it was long hours, right? You had to be there at 7, sign the attendance. If you don't pass and have to start over the next year, sort of that initiation year that medical schools have. And I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease. So I started putting the pieces back together, right? And I was in the perfect place to do that. But even though I went from this really debilitated state where I couldn't go to school, I couldn't participate in clinic and seeing patients, back to a productive member of society, I still had a huge gap in vitality. And so many of us who've had chronic diseases can understand that, right? We do something, we do therapies, interventions that can help us get some vitality back, but it's absolutely not the picture of health that so many of us can achieve. That is really our birthright. And so that's where I got into quantum biology. My physician that I was mentoring with and doing clinical rotations with was also my physician. And she was urging me to look at psychoneuroimmunology. And that is just a big word for how our thoughts impact our biology. And of course, she was absolutely right. It has a foundational role in our inflammatory state, our immune system, our hormonal state. And at the same time, I was looking at mitochondrial function, and I came across this wonderful research by Martin Picard looking at how our mental state impacts our mitochondria and the efficiency of the production of ATP. Now, our mitochondria are these really small organelles inside of a cell. And inside of our mitochondria, we have the electron transport chain, where electrons quantum tunnel down this chain to create ATP, which is our energy source. And we know any dips in ATP production can bring about a rise in symptoms or disease onset. They're very foundational for our health. And so I started to see this connection of how our mind, how our thoughts influence our health. And at the same time, I came across research from the UC Berkeley with Greg Engel and Graham Fleming, looking at these photosynthetic cells in bacteria and how they grab a photon of light and get it to a photosynthetic reaction center for photosynthesis to occur. And what they found was, of course, this photon of light is a quantum particle, so it can superimpose and take multiple paths at one time, which is incredible. But what was even more incredible was that there was a quantum coherence that was being produced in this cell. And coherence really talks about the idea of multiple things, 2 or more things, working together as one, as a whole unit. And so that was the door that really got me excited about quantum biology, that there is this language of frequency, of light, of sound, of the water inside of us that gives rise to what's happening in our body. Because what we learn now in school, what I learned was that it's all a chemical mechanical model, right? Like we have trillions of cells, and we have these keys and receptors, and the keys bump around in the cell till they get to their receptor to unlock action. But mathematically, we have trillions of cells, and each one of those cells is completing hundreds of thousands of tasks each second. So mathematically, it's impossible with that random collision model. And that's where quantum biology comes in. It's absolutely fascinating.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I've been talking a lot about this return to nature, and we're in dis-ease because we are disconnected from nature. And when you talk like you just articulated so beautifully, and just again the micro macro. It's like when you're in the physical world and you're talking about where two or more are gathered and creating a coherent state. I'm thinking of, Christian, Jesus' teachings of like where two or more are gathered. If it's like this spiritual and scientific micro macro as well, everything is reflecting and saying the same universal truths, in different language. But that's how intelligent life is. That's how it's just fascinating to me, right? And so, we are nature down to the micro level. And we are just as many, more bacterial and microbial cells than we are human cells. So we're deeply intertwined and connected with nature. So when we are in coherence with nature, when we are, decimating our environment and pouring chemicals and toxins and all these things that are incoherent with our nature and our environment, obviously we are going to be put into we're going to disrupt those perfectly designed systems. So it all makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite things to say is we don't end at the barriers of our skin, right? When you start looking at these small pieces, you realize that we're part of this amazing flow of universal energy, literally, right? Coming in as cosmic rays, flowing through every plant, animal, and human on the planet. And when we can stand in that flow of energy, the healthier we are. But modern society has done a wonderful job of disconnecting us from that flow, right? Our modern housing, our focus on productivity and work, our workplaces, all of these things don't afford that relationship, that primary relationship that we're meant to have with the world around us, with nature, right? The rising and setting of the sun, the seasons, the soil beneath our feet, all of these things are so incredibly important to our health.
Yeah, and we're experiencing, these conveniences and comforts, like processed foods and packaged foods. So convenient to grab a box of crackers, but if it's chock full of chemicals and preservatives, like our biology is not going to recognize that, and we're going to not see that as food and nourishment. And same with these houses and like the technology, all of these things that are meant to give us so much comfort and convenience are so beautiful in concept, but so damaging, electromagnetically with these guys, or, um, you know, just chemicals and all of these things that make our lives convenient and comfortable. However, we are evolving. We're not meant to sleep on a rocky ground and freezing cold, or, out. So like there is a world where we can marry and get much more aligned, coherent, natural versions of these conveniences and comforts and live in balance rather than, greed and all of these things. So anyways, how did you end up healing Lyme and the autoimmune conditions while you were in kind of such a stressful initiation, such as medical school?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Well, I did lots of things, right? So I was in naturopathic medical school. So I was doing a lot of nutritional therapy. I was looking at my diet. I was doing a lot of botanical intervention. But I think what really brought me back to that full sense of vitality, right? Years before I was diagnosed, that full sense of health and thriving that we have, what really brought me back was this quantum biological perspective. So getting my life aligned with the natural world around me, with the rhythm of the sun. My circadian rhythm was so out of whack, staying up long hours, cramming for a test, super high cortisol at night, the opposite of what it should be for resting and repairing your body, right? So really, it was returning to these relationships, my relationship with the sun and making sure that it's aligned with that rhythm of the sun and honoring that darkness at night, getting out into nature where I mean, we could spend hours on what that does, right? The sights, the sounds of nature are incredibly soothing for the nervous system and the immune system, getting out and grounding and really enveloping myself in the sounds of nature and my own sounds. At the time when I was diagnosed, I was doing a dual degree, so naturopathic medicine and Chinese medicine. And I ended up dropping the Chinese medicine because it was too much. But I had this wonderful couple year introduction into the philosophies of Chinese medicine. And what was really foundational to my healing was sound, and using my own sound and mantras and toning to create a decrease in inflammation, a reset of the nervous system. So really, I was looking at health through this lens of quantum biology, and that's what really brought me back to this state of health and vitality that I could, join life again, so to speak. It was an incredible learning, and that's, I think, why I'm so passionate about it, is because I experienced pharmaceutical medicine to help me with those autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease. I did nutrition, I did botanical medicine, but it only got me so far. It was when I started looking at these smaller pieces and how the world around us just fits like a puzzle, right? It's this invisible blueprint or intelligence that's guiding our biology that is so often ignored. So that was the real key to my healing.
Wow, that's so cool. Can you just define or explain what toning is? Because I keep hearing it and I just want to, I know that maybe it has something to do with the vagus nerve and like humming and singing in our own sounds, and breath work can stimulate the vagus nerve, which can drop us into parasympathetic nervous system and is very healing. But can you explain or define what toning is?
Yes, absolutely. So it's really sticking with one sound, right? So when I say humming, people start to hum a tune, right? Like Happy Birthday or whatever the song might be. But toning is really sticking with one sound. And usually it is a vowel sound, right? So when we look at ancient indigenous ways of healing, and that's one of the things I love about quantum biology, is it brings us back. Some of the latest research reminds us of these tools that we've had for millennia to heal, and sound is one of the toning. And if we look at ancient Egyptian medicine and their use of toning vowels as healing, right? If you look at the hieroglyphics, they don't even write down the vowels because they're so sacred, right? That is for medicine, that is sacred. We see the same thing in ancient Asian medicine or Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, that these vowel sounds, while the languages are very, very different, the words are very different, right? The vowel sounds are a common note in all of these languages. And these vowel sounds, A, E, I, O, U, all of these sounds, have a quality, a resonance that these cultures believed helped clear any obstacles to the energy flow in the body. And we know from modern science that toning can increase our oxytocin, right? That feel-good hormone in the body. It increases serotonin. It helps balance our immune system. It resets our vagus nerve. And what is the main foundational piece of our vagus nerve? Inflammation. And inflammation is really the backbone of every diagnosis we see today, right? There's an inflammatory piece. Of course, we need inflammation in a healthy immune response, but when we get stuck in that high inflammation, it really deranges the immune system, the hormonal system, all of these things downstream. And so toning can help increase that vagal tone, decreasing inflammation. It's absolutely incredible what our own voice can do.
Can you give us a little ditty just so like practical takeaway someone can hear you do it now and then do you just pick a random vowel? Do they each mean something different? And how long do you do it? I just want to give someone a practical takeaway so that as they're driving down the 405 in traffic today, they can be toning and calming themselves, you know?
Absolutely. So, one of my favorite practices is going through the chakras with the different tones. And to tell you the truth, we all resonate with different sounds, different energy centers in the body. And for me personally, over the last several years, I've really gravitated towards the root chakra, that safety and protection, as well as the heart chakra. So maybe what I'll do right now is just do a couple tonings of the vowel sound that's associated with the root chakra and the one that's associated with the heart chakra. And it's really interesting because this is an Ayurvedic practice, but the tones, for example, the tone of ah in Ayurvedic medicine for the heart chakra is the same in Chinese medicine, right? It's that same heart center, that organ system of the heart and small intestine. It's incredible. So I'll just do a couple tonings in each center just to give people an idea of my favorite tones from the last few years. So I just take a nice deep breath and kind of become centered. Let those shoulders come out of my ears, right? Like they do as they creep up with stress. I just kind of relax that. I let any kind of tension slip away and fall to the floor. And any kind of breathing pattern, it doesn't matter about the count, just matters that we're having a nice long exhale to release that tension, any stress. And then I focus on that area of the root chakra down in the sacrum. And the vowel sound associated with this is And I'll just tone that a couple times. And you guys are welcome, for those of you listening, to join in. Again. And we'll move up to that heart center, that spot where we cultivate coherence and compassion. And the vowel sound, the toning sound that is associated with this center is ah. Last time. And let's do one more, bringing us back down to that root chakra, that safety and security, that tone.
Okay.
And that is just a small practice. And I bet if you had participated in that, you probably feel a little bit different.
I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you. That's such a good takeaway. Just even just doing the root of safety, which is so important these days, and then keep that heart open and relaxed and more receptive to being in coherence. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So you also mentioned quantum parenting. What is quantum parenting? Because it feels like I mean, I was at conscious parenting, but I'm ready to graduate to quantum.
That's a good, that's a great question. And so quantum parenting talks about how to support our kids on this very small nanoscale, right? So it talks about things like screens, right? And that blue light, when we're talking about children under the age of 4 or 5, their capacity to take in more EMFs from our screens, more damaging blue light, is much higher than an adult, right? Their skulls aren't formed yet. They can still take in a much higher percentage of these things. And an example of that would be a research study that came out a few years ago showing that an exposure to a bright light an hour before bed, and it doesn't have to be long, right? 10, 15 minutes of a bright light decreases a child's melatonin production. And again, melatonin is that hormone that has so many different impacts. I mean, I think it connects with 250 different biological actions, but it's best known for its ability to help us rest and repair and get rid of any damaged cells, dysfunctional cells, cancerous cells. That exposure to bright light an hour before bed decreases their melatonin by 90%. 90%. I mean, that is staggering. So, quantum parenting looks at ways to support our kids, ways to align them with the world around them. And Kelly, I really think that one of the most important things in quantum parenting is coherence and this idea of a parent and a child working as one unit, right? And Heart Math Institute has done such incredible research on heart coherence. And what they've shown us is that the measurable magnetic field and electromagnetic field of the heart is the single biggest field of the human body. We can measure a cell, we measure EEGs in the brain all the time, but the heart is the dominant electromagnetic field of the body, and it can entrain other things. It can pull other things into coherence with it. And that idea of heart brain coherence that Heart Math and others have researched so extensively shows us that when our heart and our brain are working in coherence from a state of gratitude or love or awe, right? These emotions entrain a different function. We're actually wiring the frontal lobe where we make calm, rational decisions, not the amygdalas where we're responding in fear. It helps us send out that ripple of coherence throughout the body, through the nervous system, the immune system, the inflammatory system. It's quite incredible. And when we're talking about coherence in quantum parenting, of course that there's that capacity as parents to work on our own internal coherence and how that can entrain the coherence of those around us, like our children, right? That idea of self-regulating and co-regulating, so that if we're in a state of coherence, our children can entrain to that, right? We are that safe harbor when they are feeling frustrated and angry and fearful, which is so common and so human of them and of us, right? But to have this parent figure to exude this coherence and this safe space is incredible. And I think that when I talk about coherence, it can often be relegated into, okay, there's another thing I have to do as a parent. I have to always be thinking of love and gratitude and awe and joy, right? And not not be a real human. But I don't think that's what coherence is telling us. I think coherence is saying that if we're meeting that emotion, so if we're a parent who's angry, that got angry about something, or is sad, is experiencing a loss, or is fearful, all of these emotions are normal human emotions. And if we allow space for them, we find that the other side of these emotions is love, gratitude, joy, all those things we've talked about, right? So when my child comes up to me and I'm experiencing one of these emotions and they say, are you okay? My daughter will do this all the time. Are you okay? When I am not okay. And I think it's really important for us as parents to stay in coherence with that. So if I meet her and say, yes, everything's fine when I'm angry or sad or scared, it's doing two things. It's invalidating her internal sense of the world, right? So she's like, wow, I know she's not okay, or at least I thought I knew. And now maybe I don't have that internal knowing, that intuition, right? So we're invalidating that precious internal compass that a child has. And we're invalidating that coherence and that honesty that we have relating with our children, right? So instead of trying to mask that, saying, yeah, I'm feeling really overwhelmed or really angry, and I'm just taking a moment out here to kind of let it flow, right? That tells our child, okay, she's human too. She feels these things too. And look at how she's processing that. Look, she's not bottling up and turning it into blame or guilt or feeling shameful for these emotions. She's feeling those emotions. She's making space for them. Now she's going for a little walk or doing some breathing or whatever it is to let those emotions flow. And she trusts me to tell me how she's feeling. And that allows me to tell her how I'm feeling. It breeds this beautiful coherence or working as one as a parent and child. And I really do, for all the science and blue light and EMF and all these things, nutrition that we can talk about with quantum parenting, I think that coherence is the most important thing that I talk about with parenting.
Oh, that is so amazing. And I was doing my best to stay focused, and I was really in there at the end with the modeling of coherence and just feeling. Look, our generation was never taught about how to feel. We were just, we escape, we suppress, we repress, because we were modeled that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so beautiful to kind of reparent ourselves, become aware of what we're feeling, take a moment in order to not do the knee-jerk reaction of suppress, repress, escape, and just sit with it, observe it, let it move through you and move your body, breathe, do all the things. And then if the child is around, be honest about it and be like, I need a moment. I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling very sad, whatever it is, and start naming that. I mean, it's such a big part of the reparenting process too that we never got modeled. So that's so beautiful and healing. Thank you for sharing that so eloquently. And then I was going back to the scientific study about 90% reduction in melatonin because thank God, I know the intelligence of the human body and how my daughter can reverse this damage that I've allowed her because we've gotten into this horrible habit of watching shows before we go to bed. I don't watch TV because I just don't have time anymore at this moment. But she loves her little shows before bed. So we'll read books and then she wants to watch shows and then I'll turn them off when I sense that she's really tired. But talk about flooding blue light into her right before she shuts her eyes. I mean, thank God we can reverse that damage and start to implement new practices in my home. Thank you for this life-saving information you just gave me. Dang it.
Yeah. No, I love that you frame it that way because it is. We are so resilient. We are way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And especially as parents, we hear these studies and we're like, oh, what have I done? The body is so resilient. And like you were talking about at the beginning of the interview about how we can marry technology, we are finally at a point where we not only have amazing technology that allows us to snuggle up and watch these amazing shows with our little ones, but we also have the technology to make it safe, right? We have red light dimmers on our screens. We have blue light blocking glasses. I mean, there's so many things out there. I was just talking with someone the other day who's creating a screen that goes in the rhythm of the sun, right? So it changes colors depending on what time of day it is. I mean, we have so many solutions out there. The more we talk about this, the more awareness we bring to it, the more we bring those solutions out into the table. And so I love that you brought up the resilience of the body because it is so resilient. I mean, people are talking about forever chemicals, which are horrible. But if we don't come in contact with them, we can rid ourselves of these forever chemicals in 7, 8 years. It's the exposure, it's the companies that keep putting these chemicals into our environment that is the problem. It's not our beautiful bodies, right? They are brilliant.
Amen, sister. Oh my gosh, I'm just that emoji with the forehead to the hand to the forehead right now. But you're right. Resilience, we can turn this tanker around and read before bed. Although it's funny, just last night I put red glasses on her because I think, I don't know, Dave Asprey or someone gave her, it was like blue light blocking during the day with the yellow lenses and then red at night. So, and I was like, you might have to start wearing these. So I'll give her the choice. She can watch one show with the red glasses, or we can stop screens at 6 and do books from then on out or whatever. Thank you for that. So one thing that came up this morning, a dear friend sent me a note that just said, I woke up and I was just really appreciating how you show up in the world and how you show up for our friend group. And it was just, he's like, usually I let these thoughts go without expressing them, but I wanted to express them. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And this is not a friend that would we don't talk that often. So it's really beautiful. And so there's been a lot of thought and conversation about how, especially with my friend Zach Bush, about how, we feel seen when we're in nature. We can just totally relax, and nature will, because we're in that coherent state when we're just being in nature, whether it's hiking or sitting in a park and listening to the sounds and soaking and enveloping in that frequency, as you said, we feel seen in nature. And humans feel loved when they feel seen, understood, and appreciated. And so it's that coherence of us putting ourselves in nature, feeling seen by nature, but then also realizing that nature wants to be seen and nature wants to be appreciated. So to sit in that space and then have this symbiotic, beautiful coherence with the natural world, it's so healing for nature and it's so healing for us that it's just this amplifier of vitality all around. So that was just what came to me this morning, sparking from that sweet little note from a friend. So I just want to know if you have
That's
any
beautiful.
comments on that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think that what we don't realize is that life and living systems, whether that's a plant or an animal or a human ourselves, is that we're synchronous beings. We are meant to sync and entrain and come into coherence with the world around us. And that means exactly what you just said. It means that we are meant to be in nature and syncing with nature. We are meant to be with our communities, our friend groups, our family, and syncing into entrainment and coherence and love with them. We are meant to be with our animals, right? All of these things exist in relationship. And modern life has done a wonderful job of putting up barriers between us and people and plants and animals because of our modern lifestyle, right? Our productivity, go, 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 that doesn't leave time for this. I mean, when we look at some of these ancient indigenous cultures, the thing that really stands out, well, one of the things that stands out is this idea of a sage. And these sages go out for decades into nature to develop a relationship with a river or a tree, or, it's this incredibly profound relationship and observation in a bidirectional way. So the person is observing that river, but that river is observing that person. And both are being fed by this synchronicity, by this coherence, by this relationship. And so I think what you just said was a beautiful example of that.
Wow, thank you. Yeah. It is. I mean, there's the scientific reasons why nature is so healing, but just when you frame it in that way, it's just like having just being in nature, whether it's taking off your shoes and walking on the beach at sunset, being by the ocean and the negative ions, but just in that frequency of that synchrony is so powerful. So it's like you don't even need to know the scientific benefits. You just have to go and feel and tap in and listen to the sounds and cut out all the noise of the modern world and just reconnect to that ancient wisdom of just being in nature. Oh, it's so powerful.
It's so powerful. And I think that I was talking with someone the other day and they called it a homelessness, that we experience this feeling of homelessness because we're disconnected from our first home.
Mm.
We're disconnected from that just unconditional love that nature has, right? That complete embrace that nature can give us, whether it's the warmth of the sun or the feeling of the ground beneath our feet, whether it's the breeze through the trees carrying those negative ions, all of those things, right, are just this unconditional that nature provides for us. And it's an incredible returning home, right? I think that was one of the things that really solidified my passion about quantum biology was this returning home, right? So many of us live in a world that isn't always safe, and to find that safety and that home in the world around us, in the seasonal flux, in the moonlight and sunlight, and the world around us in the natural trees and sand and the flow of the river is an incredible medicine just in and of itself that so many of us aren't experiencing on a daily basis, or maybe have never experienced that immense amount of safety that the natural world can provide to us. And I think that when I talk with my patients and give them this checklist and all the science behind it, it's like, okay, I got to go out and see the morning sun and lower the lights at night and do this and that. But that checklist becomes a relationship. And I think that is really where the true healing happens, is when that relationship can be cultivated. And I think it is both ways, right? I think nature is waiting for us and so happy to embrace us and to be seen and to be in coherence with us, just like we are of it.
And it's such a master teacher, just the rhythms and the cycles, like to see that, you know, you have to go through the harvest and the spring and the blossoming, and then the, you know, the winter and the degeneration and the, you know, the rebirth and the birth and the rebirth cycles, the birth and the death cycles. You know, it just gives us grace in our life. Like there's time for productivity and go, go, go. And then there's time for rest, and on a 24-hour cycle, on a yearly cycle. And so once you just start to cultivate this awareness and know that our dis-ease is coming from our disconnection from nature and these natural rhythms and cycles, we can start to go, oh, I should eat local, in season food, because that's what my body needs right now. And it just, how does it know it needs that? Because it's on the quantum level picking up so much information about the frequency of our environment. And so it wants the foods are growing in our environment that our body and the community around it that is connected to the earth needs. It's like, it's so simple, yet it's so profound. I want to talk a little bit about my favorite aspects of the quantum is, you know, quantum physics is that, you know, observer effect. And do you weave that into your practice? Because there's so much, you know, we are water carries frequency and information. And then, you know, as you talk about quantum biology, it's the observer kind of affects whether the quantum particle becomes particle or wave or stays wave. So it's that expectation of the outcome of your body, of your system, that kind of perhaps may dictate on a quantum level if if you're expecting disease and degeneration because some doctor told you that you have 3 months to live, you know, it's not shocking that when you're focused on that 3 months to live and that you're going to die, the observer effect is now dictating that those particles and that expression will unfold. And so can you talk a little bit about that and how we could do the opposite? We can expect and observe and just witness and see our health and vitality and the healing of a certain area or, you know, of our life or our physicality. And that's what may unfold.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is such a powerful seed to plant in a person's mind, right? Because our thoughts are so incredible. Our body doesn't understand the difference between a thought and reality, right? I mean, Bruce Lipton has done amazing research and work with this and the biology of belief and how stem cells are really guided by their environment. And I think that recent research has absolutely confirmed that our cells are communicating energetically, right? They're communicating with EMF that guides our cellular behavior and a differentiation, how a cell becomes an ear or an elbow. And this idea that can come from our thoughts, that our thoughts have a predictable energy associated with them. They have a predictable sound and light frequency. If we look at what's happening in a neuron that's thinking a thought, those sound waves, those inelastic collisions of the molecules that are associated with a thought create a sound pattern that creates a light pattern. And we do have this incredibly unique form of water that is covering all of our cell membranes, our fascia, our DNA, that can receive this information. And so when you start to look at it that way, that there is this broadcast energetically in sound, in light, in EMF happening from a thought that could be picked up by this incredible, immense water body that we have within us, you start to understand that that is where we should be starting from health. And of course, health is so many things, right? But to negate or ignore the power of a thought, of an intention, of this observer effect, because that's when it changes, right? I talk so much about trauma and chronic stress in the nervous system. And so many people say, well, how do I know I'm healed from trauma, right? They expect some like, okay, the scar is there. It's not an open wound type of thing that we can look at. And what I often come back to is that observer effect. If you are observing your train of thoughts, that subconscious train of thought, so many of us are given before the age of 7, right? That in a lot of cases is not the most healthiest train of thought, right? We're not good enough. We're not worthy enough. That observer effect changes it. It goes from subconscious to conscious. We are now aware of that. Same thing with trauma, same thing with healing. If we can become aware of the power of our body and the power of our thoughts to heal, that becomes a guiding force for our biology. It guides, it informs, it educates our cellular response at the smallest level, leading to the biggest level, right? Back to that micro, macro, beautiful dance that we're doing at all times, and how that observer effect and intention and thoughts is pivotal to our biology and our healing.
This is so profound the way you said it. Again, the simplest things are so profound, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what you said. So the observer effect can apply to when we get triggered, we can become aware that, okay, something, whether it was something that that person said or something that just occurred in my environment, is triggering me and I'm having a physical response. And so that goes, oh, why can't I breathe? Why is my chest tightening? Why am I hunched over in protection? Or why is my face flushing with anger and rage, you know? So these are all going, oh, light bulb, I'm getting triggered. Then you go into the investigation of what is the thought that's causing me to have this physical reaction to an emotion, you know, and feeling. And then, so that is, you're observing the thought. So then you do the investigation and it gets down to, oh, I have fear that that I'm not worthy of being loved. So me making this mistake and causing me to be flushed and embarrassed and humiliated is going to cause everyone in my life to abandon me because I'm not worried of being loved. If that's, you know, that's the investigation. So now you're observing after investigation, your subconscious belief, and just that practice brings that subconscious to the conscious, which then the wound can start to just heal and eventually scar over the more you observe. So just that practice of observing when you're triggered, how it feels in your body, then trying to trace what happened, what is my fearful thought, tracing that down to the subconscious belief. Just that observer effect can cause healing, can lead to healing. That's so cool. And we could do it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't require that we go over it a bunch, that we dissect it. You know, it doesn't require that we stay there. The beautiful thing is shining light on it, observing it is instantaneous, right? So having that sense of completion, knowing that our body is so resilient, and just from acknowledging whatever it might be, that begins this beautiful cascade of healing within us. And it's incredible incredibly brilliant. Our body is brilliant, and it tucks things away because, I mean, that's the definition of trauma, right? Being overwhelmed. The system is overwhelmed and can't process that, so they tuck it away somewhere. And our body is so intelligent, it tucks it away most often in a sense, right? In the sense of smell or temperature or a song, whatever it might be, can really trigger that an emotional interaction with a person, and how we sense the energy of that person, right? That can bring up all these triggers because our body has kind of shelled and protected us from that trauma. And being able to bring that out and shine light on it not only has this observer effect and acknowledgement, but it tells the body we're safe. It says, okay, we're ready. Work your magic, work your brilliance, shine your intelligent light on this because I'm ready. And it doesn't require, this massive surgery and all this stuff. It's a beautiful moment of intention and observation that can bring about that shift.
Yeah. And who am I? I am not my body, because we say my hand, my body, my thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my beliefs. And so as we practice that observer and pulling back into the I am, that the consciousness or the soul that animates this physical body, then we can start to go, oh, we're observing. So it says we're safe. We're actually not back in that traumatic thing that caused that belief to implant in the programming, and our body's just running on program. So we pull out of that program, observe, and then, we could start to investigate, is that true? Byron Katie's work is amazing. And it's just, I don't know, this is just so cool. And again, it's like all healing to me comes back to this spiritual remembering of our truth our observer, our soul, our higher self. We're these perfect divine beings. We are whole. And so the more we can pull out of our human story and start to observe and go, oh, that makes sense, go back, investigate, bring that to light so it gets some oxygen and heals that wounding. And then we just hold our little human selves and this brilliant body that saved us from the trauma by stuffing it down into our, armpit or left hip or wherever it's manifesting. And it starts to just open and flow again. I mean, it's so cool.
It's incredible. I mean, I think of the work with phantom limbs and people who have had an arm, let's say, amputated, right? And they experience pain in the arm that isn't there. And so how do you deal with that? And there's this doctor that mirrors that for them. So they have them put a mirror to have their body think. They look at the mirror, they see the other arm and hand that is there, and then they work and manipulate and provide therapy for the hand and arm that is there being seen in a mirror, right? So it is this complete rewiring of how the body experiences pain, how it can be shown like, okay, here, I'm showing you that arm that isn't there. I'm treating it, and now it's better. And the brain says, thank you, right? It's this incredibly magnificent system, way more intelligent than we give it credit for, or that we've even scratched the surface of, I believe.
And the last thing I'll just leave with people is it happens so fast. Like things on the systems, reactivities, response, communication, electrical, energetic, all chemical, all of these, what word am I looking for? Reactions are happening so fast, and communications. And so like the phantom, pain in an amputated limb that's no longer there. And then also, in multiple personality disorder, if a woman has, let's say, 5 personalities and one of them is allergic to orange juice, she could drink in that personality orange juice, break out in hives, and then whoosh, psychoneuroimmunology, she switches into a different brain, personality, persona, and that person is not allergic to orange juice, and the hives just disappear like that. So that is the power of this, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual connection, and what we have to work with. And it can happen like that. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think part of the reason it happens like that is because of this frequency language of quantum biology, right? We are not dependent on this molecular, time where we have to walk through this reaction, that reaction. It's a ripple of energy and it's instantaneous. It's amazing.
yeah, well, I love that you said, we're giving rise to these, the best of what technology has told us, but now we're making more natural, organic solutions that are in coherence with nature and our bodies, so we can have the comforts and conveniences, but in a safe, coherent, aligned, and vitality, booming sense, which is so cool. So thank you so much. Where can people find you, even just as a naturopath, but also on Instagram and everything that you offer?
Absolutely. I am Dr. Catherine Clinton with a C, and that's where you can find me. That's my handle on social media and YouTube, and that's my website. I have lots of free downloads and videos because I love spreading this information. We're in really an epidemic of chronic mental and physical health, and I think that quantum biology can help us shift the needle back. So that's how you can find me, and I love to share.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll do this again soon. I could talk to you for days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.